evening, ladies and gentlemen. They say that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, so please try to enjoy yours whilst I say a few words about the priorities of the Maltese presidency in the first half of next year. I will not speak for too long, and I will try to take as much questions as possible. In January 2017, Malta will assume the presidency of the Council of the European Union for the very first time since accession in 2004. And this is definitely an enormous honor. Coming at a time of unprecedented challenges, Malta's skills and resources will be severely tested. It is a pet theme of our moderator, Mr. Emanuelidis, that the EU is currently in a phase of muddling through. However, the presidency presents an unrivaled chance for a country like ours, the EU's smallest member state. Of course, we do not stand alone, and we arrive at the end of a trio presidency that includes our Dutch and the Slovak partners, and I must offer them our sincerest thanks for their tireless service and for their willingness to share with us their experiences as we prepare to build on their many successes. Allow me to get immediately to the crux of the matter, and in the current circumstances, the two overarching objectives and priorities of our presidency are to ensure the long-term sustainability of the Union and to restore belief in the European project. Since 1992, Europe has had to witness and subsequently cater for three Union enlargements, face the emergence of large economies such as China, India and Brazil, and experience a tough financial period that threatened to shake the Union to its very foundations. More recently, the Union has been severely traumatized by migration, security, terrorism and Brexit. These have contributed to a large degree to the re-emergence of extreme nationalism, protectionism, xenophobic and geopolitical tensions. All these contrast heavily with the European ideals. The recent crises have emphasized the fact that there is not sufficient latitude in the system to avoid having permanent winners and constant losers. Let me analyze what I perceive to be some shortfalls that cause people to lose faith in the European Union. Ultimately, it's the citizens who are the real protagonists of this very same Union. And I believe that at times the Union failed to convince its citizens that it is truly representing their interests. Often, the decision-making process in Brussels has been perceived to be removed from the real-life concerns of the European citizens. And I believe that the deficit in citizens' credibility is often as a result of a deficit in implementation of those decisions. At this delicate moment in time of Europe's history, one must focus on these issues which address the legitimate concerns and expectations of our European citizens. We have to be careful to avoid unnecessary tension and not to create suspicion. We need to have the courage to review and reform when we need to do so and to remove or improve stagnant concepts and thinking. However, it would be folly for me to think that a complete redesign of Europe is on the cards. And here I believe that it is vital to bring about what is relevant and necessary using current instruments and treaties. Opening up treaties which have taken years to hammer out and to secure consensus would divert precious resources and sap energy which can be better used to address its real fundamental issues. It will be like opening a Pandora's box, which is easy to do but practically impossible to reverse. We need to address concretely the uncertainty, fear and inequalities felt by European citizens. Currently, a significant number of citizens feel that national responses to issues of economy, security and migration are far more effective than the European ones. Ordinary citizens feel an increasing sense of uncertainty and betrayal. The EU will have to adapt to reflect realities that are emerging. Current situations, hopefully, have served as a wake-up call that should not lead to any knee-jerk reaction. Europe is facing a perceived divide between North and South. There is also a lack of stability in the EU's neighborhood, as well as uncertainties about our relationship with global partners. And forthcoming elections in the Netherlands, France, and Germany, the referendum in Italy, and last week's results of the United States election all could have a bearing on the future shape and priorities of the Union. These crises should not detract us from continuing the European agenda and the project itself, but rather provides us with a window of opportunity to build a stronger, more competitive and social Europe. I believe that this analysis is factual. It is definitely not being made in a negative tone. The first step before taking corrective action is to face facts as they are. Then, of course, we can move forward with the analysis and really work on the main project, which is that to reunite Europe. And this is what the Maltese presidency has to be seen against in terms of backdrop. In this context, allow me, Mr. Chairman, to go to the nuts and bolts of our priorities and work program. Our trio, the Netherlands, Slovakia and Malta, agreed that the program will not be burdened by an unrealistic broad agenda where everything is prioritized. All of the three presidencies have been guided by the 5 pillars aligned with the EU strategic agenda, which our heads of states and governments agreed back in June 2014, in areas of jobs, growth and competitiveness, empowerment and protection for all citizens, energy union and the forward-looking climate policy, freedom, security and justice, and the Union as a strong global actor. Each of our priorities fits into these 5 sections. Malta will have a heavy work program on its plate, but we are well prepared. We will push the agenda forward. At the same time, we will make sure to bring to the table our own dimension in terms of the priorities of the presidency of the Council. Migration. The migration crisis looms large in our thoughts. During our presidency, we want to deliver swift implementation of the measures that have already been agreed and to ensure that the issue stays at the top of the political agenda. People are demanding action, and we cannot afford a complacent EU that fails to treat this subject with urgency and importance it deserves. In particular, we need to build resilience into the system, and therefore we want to strengthen and streamline the common European asylum system as a means of sharing the burden more fairly among member states. And revising the Dublin regulation will be key. We want to transform the European Asylum Support Office into a fully fledged European agency, and we also pledge to follow up on measures agreed at the Valletta Summit on migration, particularly with respect to third countries, in order to address some of the root causes of economic migration and the need for better international cooperation. In this regard, we will reconnect with the partners of Valletta in February to take stock of what has been achieved and map out the next steps that need to be undertaken in line with the agreed action plan. We will also work in Brussels to provide the necessary instruments, such as the European External Investment Plan and the EIB's external lending mandate, so that we encourage and support development and investment in these partner countries. The single market is the Union's greatest tool. If together we manage to exploit fully the single market and develop the digital single market, we will bring significant benefits to our economies, our businesses, and our families. We eliminate barriers to trade and improve the protection and access to services for consumers. We will deliver everything we can in this area, principally by improving and passing key legislation already under discussion. And in this respect, eliminating roaming charges throughout Europe would constitute a huge victory for the European consumers. We also want to look at how to improve consumers' access to goods online across the EU and to ensure that their rights and remedies do not vary depending on where they live. We want to make progress on eliminating the discriminatory geo-blocking that prevents citizens in one region from accessing goods, content, and services freely available in others. In the area of energy, we want to make the third-party supply of gas to EU fairer and more transparent. Overall, we want to improve financial support for small and medium-sized enterprises across Europe as part of the Capital Markets Union drive. Security. The horrific terror attacks in the recent past show that we as a union must remain constantly on our guard to ensure the security of our citizens. In an increasingly volatile international landscape, the Maltese presidency will work towards create concrete proposals that address regional and global challenges while upholding the values that underpin the very existence of the Union. And the EU's first line of defense in this area remains effective diplomacy. And here we work closely with the External Action Services to manage the complex challenges of migration, terrorism, and other threats. We want to achieve significant progress on current initiatives aimed at better managing the Union's external border, as well as to further the creation of an EU travel information and authorization scheme. We see an opportunity to improve the governance of Eurojust to arrive at better cooperation in criminal justice across borders. In all this, however, it is imperative that the Union finds the right balance between a strong system of security and the protection of the principles deriving from the concept of the rule of law. Social inclusion. Malta is justly proud of its historic record in social policy, and this is an area where our experience can benefit our European partners. We will consult closely with partners such as NGOs and citizens groups to help us advance gender equality and rights of minorities, as well as vulnerable groups. We want to ensure that women across Europe have full access to the labour market, and to that end we aim to secure agreement at Council level to remove some of the existing barriers to women's economic independence. Malta will continue to combat gender-based violence, promoting the sharing of best practices and exchanging information on existing legislation, policies, and strategies. Another priority that we feel acutely is our neighbourhood policy. In the light of the growing instability beyond Europe's borders, we will devote our efforts to bolstering democracy and security. Countries bordering the southern Mediterranean are facing serious challenges, including armed conflict, terrorism, extremism, and radicalization. And this is crucial to our citizens' sense of security and to promote European values of responsibility and solidarity. One aim is to help stabilize Libya through peaceful unification and to work towards a breakthrough in the Syrian conflict. The Maltese presidency will support the European Union and international efforts to resume the Middle East peace process between Israel and Palestine. We will continue to engage the Eastern neighbourhood, particularly with respect to supporting the Ukraine and ensuring cooperation with Russia on issues of global and regional concern. Relations between the EU and Turkey will feature prominently in this regard. Turkey remains an important strategic partner in helping us controlling irregular migration and the protection of the Union's external border. However, we need to be firm on our values and on Turkey's observance of its commitments as a candidate country under the Convention of Human Rights. Maritime. The continuing development of the maritime sector under the European Union Integrated Maritime Policy fits squarely with the legislative priorities of an outward-looking island nation in the southern Mediterranean. In addition, the sector provides a diverse spectrum of innovative research and commercial activities that can be developed into high value-added job opportunities. This would be in line with the Blue Growth Initiative towards growth and competitiveness. And we expect to launch the Western Mediterranean Sea Basin Strategy in early next year, targeting a specific geographical area of interest to member states and neighbours. I would like now to touch upon some issues that do not sit with any of our priority baskets, but which will have a major impact on Europe's future. At the midpoint of our presidency, the United Kingdom is likely to trigger Article 50, which will pave the way towards Brexit. More than ever, Brexit clearly demonstrates that the integrative process is not irreversible and should not be taken for granted. We in Europe must avoid the temptation to circle the wagons, and we should remain open to international dialogue and trade. Moreover, Europe must continue to move forward and not to allow its resources to get unduly diverted by the management of the UK exit. The management is important, but it should not be to the detriment, delays, or the resultant dilution of achieving stated long-term objectives, or indeed of sacrificing principles. The final UK exit agreement should not be a situation where non-membership becomes as attractive as membership, with all its obligations. Moreover, we should ensure that the four freedoms of the Union are not to be disengaged from each other. Malta made its position very clear in recent discussions with former Commissioner Michel Barnier, the EU Brexit negotiator on behalf of the Commission, and with Secretary Boris Johnson, the UK's Foreign Secretary, only last week. We feel that once Article 50 is activated, a pragmatic approach to negotiations should be adopted. This should lead to fair, clear and swift solutions which address the complex realities. On another theme, we are also supporting the Slovak presidency on the midterm review of the multi-annual financial framework to conclude the negotiations in this regards. We are working closely together, and should it not be possible to reach an agreement by end of year, we are prepared to carry on this work. But I'm quite optimistic that we can find, the Slovaks can reach an agreement by end of this year. We believe this will enable the 2018 until 2020 EU annual budgets to respond better to the needs of the European Union and beyond, in particular actions in relation to migration and EU's external policy. Moreover, flexibility and tailored solutions will be needed, especially where innovative instruments are used. I think that it is about time to address the notion that one size fits all shape. In many cases, we have the big task of the simplification package, amendments to financial regulations and other elements. We will work hard on this, as we believe this to be part of the solution towards better spending and sound financial management. The Malta Summit on the 3rd of February next year will continue the reflection that has started in Bratislava and prepare for the meeting in Rome, which is a celebration of the 60th anniversary of the Treaty of Rome, right in the middle of our presidency. This should be an occasion to find a new momentum and a platform to rebuild trust in the European project in a viable and sustainable way. At the moment, the sustainable and consolidated existence of the Union is our absolute priority. And the fundamental means to achieve this is restoring citizens' trust in the European project. What will happen in the short term will shape and define the future of Europe. Europe is in need of a new momentum, and any initiative in this direction calls for a new paradigm of political thinking. The European Union has a seriously fragile balancing act to follow, and balance between flexibility, which should not be so loose and to threaten the existence of a real union, and intransigently, which can undermine the integration process. Flexibility and tailored solutions rather than one-size-fits-all will be needed, especially where innovative instruments are used, as I already referred to previously. On the positive side, this historical continent encompasses a mass of divergent views and vested interests, all of which have been able to function together and resulted in significant development. The EU has succeeded in its fundamental principles, in that it has delivered half a century of peace, security and prosperity, and has generally raised living standards. However, we believe that with the right leadership, sense of vision and inbuilt flexibility, the European ideal will face its challenges successfully and withstand the test of time. It will adapt, change shape and evolve to forge a strong, dynamic and vibrant Europe for us, young people, and future generations. And I am convinced that the difficult time that Europe is experiencing will help us to continue discovering who we are, where we are weak, and where we are strong. More importantly, that it will be an opportunity to prove to future European generations that Europe stood up well to the challenges. I believe that the Union can succeed if it manages to instill a feeling of justified hope and optimism. Thank you very much.
We would now want to start with the questions, answers, and comments section. As you were saying in introduction, it's also challenging times. So the fact that we have a long list, I think, also reflects that. But I also want to thank you for being honest, especially in the beginning of your speech when you were analyzing the current state of affairs. You said that the EU is traumatized, that there is a need to regain the support of citizens, that there's a need to, quoting you, reunite Europe, while at the same time being also realistic. That's at least how I understood you. Not being complacent, but being realistic in the approach which needs to be followed. And linked to the final remark you made with respect to the Malta summit in February, sorry. What do you expect from the process? What do you expect will be, if you look at the commemoration of the Rome treaties next year, the outcome of this process? How ambitious can it be, should it be, in terms of guiding the way with respect to the future? If you could respond to this question, I'm looking around to take then questions and comments from all of you.
Oh, thank you, Anis. First of all, it's good that I've been understood well, at least by yourself. That was exactly the message which I tried to convey. With regards to the Malta summit, I think, first of all, we are modest and definitely we are not trying to reinvent the wheel. This is a process which started in Bratislava. President Tusk called this summit. I think that we had some important results coming out of that summit. The process will continue in Malta, and I believe that Malta offers the right and the right political climate and environment to discuss in a serene way and reflect on our challenges. We had already this opportunity to offer our European and also our African friends this setup back last year in November, which summit we considered it to be very fruitful. However, we will call a seniors officials meeting in February, like I stated in my speech, to take stock of what has been implemented since then, because it's good to have meetings, it's good to, if we can agree to a decision, but then it's equally important, or even more important, especially if we want to rebuild the trust of the citizens, to implement those decisions. And I'm pretty sure that it is a very timely meeting which we will be having in Valletta together with the African partners to take stock of that meeting. With regards to the Malta summit, and then also reflecting on what we want to achieve from the Rome event. The Rome event is giving us the opportunity to reflect on the some good achievements and results the European project obtained for our citizens in the past decades, and at the same time looking forward, considering all these challenges which we are facing.
Thank you, Ian. Who wants to be the first to raise his or her voice?
Fantastic. Good morning, I'm Johan Barros from the Federation of European Accountants. Anti-tax avoidance, anti-money laundering, these are high on the Commission agenda at the moment. Could you please elaborate a bit how important this will be on the Maltese presidency agenda?
Who else? I would like to take a couple in each round, so I'm looking around. Who would want to? Yes, sir.
Edwin Ward from Paragon Europe. I'm a Maltese citizen. I think appropriate that Malta is holding the presidency at this stage, because if there's a nation of people who believe in Europe, it's the Maltese. And if you look at the voting statistics from the last European Parliament elections, I believe the turnout was something like 79.8%. All surveys show that the Maltese believe in Europe. Overwhelmingly, at least 70% are positive about Europe. So my question is this: with this small nation model that can be scaled up right across Europe, on what pillars was it built? Well, the focus has been on things like jobs, money, the economy. There's an old saying, the economy's stupid, meaning to be practical about things. Every citizen needs to feel the effects of the EU in their pocket. So my question is to the whole panel. Parliamentary Secretary mentioned young people. We all know that many young people from the southern Mediterranean and also from Scandinavia are unemployed. They have no hope. So how will this presidency help to get young people back to work?
Yes, to the first question when it comes to taxation and tax avoidance, this is a sensitive subject which will be definitely a challenge for the presidency to reach a common agreement in Council. You're right when you're saying that this is an ambition, particular ambitious dossier for the Commission, and we appreciate that. As a Council, as a presidency, of course, we are still waiting the Slovaks to conclude their final weeks of presiding over Council. We are confident that when it comes to the anti-money laundering directive, they will reach a general approach in the Council, and then it will be our objective to reach the political agreement during our tenure. In that regards, considering all the sensitivities which this area pertains. With regards to the EU and how the Maltese perceive it, I thank you for bringing that up. Actually, it's 82% of the Maltese population supporting membership, and still believe that this is the place where our country should be. We have the highest participation rate when it comes to European Parliament, of course for those not having obligatory duty to go out and vote. And with regards to the youths and the initiatives in this area, I have to say that first of all, recently under the youth initiative, we as a council actually exceeded the expectations of also the Commission when it comes to the allocation. We gave more allocation for these initiatives, and in Malta we have some good stories to tell also in this regards. Notwithstanding the fact that we had a relatively low amount and percentage of youth unemployment, we still adopted and implemented the youth guarantee and other youth initiatives, which are reaping fruits and results in this regards. And as a presidency, we will do our utmost to continue convince the other member states and working closely with Commission and with the European Parliament in order to not only have more of these initiatives, but being well implemented on the ground, because some numbers in some member states are still very worrying. I totally agree with you.
Thank you. Who else want to? Yes, Mark.
Yanis, thank you. Mark Johnston. I work freelance normally on energy and climate issues, so I might come back on that if there's time. But just a clarification, if I may. Somewhere in the middle of your speech, you were talking about the UK situation. Did you say that the Article 50 process was reversible? Or, in other words, that an Article 50 letter from London could be cancelled by another letter? And in any case, what is the Council's view on that question, please? Thanks very much.
Let's take the lady over there. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Norma Saliba from Television Malta. My question is about migration. There is a division between member states on the concept of what solidarity means in the context of migration. How will Malta carry this debate forward? The Slovak presidency will be putting forward another proposal during the December European Council, which, from my impression, when it was announced during the trio meeting in Malta, it is not a one-size-fits-all solution to solidarity. What is the way forward?
So we have two issues now, migration and Article 50, although we don't even know when it will be triggered, and there might be a delay here. So what's your response to that?
No, about Article 50, my comment was in the sense that now we know that it was already enshrined in the treaties, but now we know that membership is irreversible, and we cannot take it for granted. We have to work every day in order to ensure that this union does not shrink, but hopefully continues to grow and have further enlargements. So I was not referring to the letter itself. The letter is a process which should be decided and triggered by the United Kingdom, and of course we are expecting that to happen in the first 3 months, as per Prime Minister's May declarations. I don't know what you're referring to when it comes to reversed.
Could the UK at a later date cancel its letter?
Well, this is up to the UK. This is up to the UK. I mean, if the UK's political system wants to ignore a referendum where millions of people decided to leave the union, that would be up to the UK. It's a sovereign decision which the UK takes. I mean, there is no need for me to say yes or no. I mean, it's up to them to decide. I mean, I think the people raised their voices through a referendum which they were promised for ages. That referendum took place. The vote was clear. The Prime Minister's comments are even clearer. She said that she will trigger Article 50 by end of March. Notwithstanding legal challenges there are, she reiterated her position to send the letter by end of March, and we will wait for that. And when it comes to migration, well, it's true that I referred to the principle of if it's a principle of flexibility during my speech. I was definitely not referring to flexible solidarity. I don't know if any of you in this room understands what flexible solidarity means. However, this has been raised, something which then became effective solidarity. The most important thing is that we have it in the treaty, but it's not only about treaties, it's about our credibility. And I believe that the people will judge us in the coming future, us who have some bearing on decision making, whether we are in Council, whether we are in the European Parliament, whether we are in the Commission, whether we are in a think tank or disseminating information via news agencies, or just citizens who can influence decision making. They will judge us whether we were up to this challenge. And if we are not able to show solidarity, one of the basic values which instigated the creation of this project, then we will definitely list our names in the bad books of history. And I think this is something that we do not want to associate ourselves with, not only for the sake of history, but because we have hundreds and thousands of people drowning in the Mediterranean Sea, losing their lives. I know that there are also some economic migrants, and we should pursue investing in Africa and lending money there to have the good economic investments replacing the illegal activities like smuggling and other activities taking place. But at the same time, we have to save lives at sea. That is what Malta is doing. We are dedicating 100% of our limited resources when it comes to the military and other defense resources in order to save the lives at sea. We've been doing that for 12 years. It's not only the last couple of months or years when perhaps migrants reached other member states and not only Malta, Italy, and Greece. And we expect solidarity. We expect solidarity not only with member states like Malta, but also with migrants fleeing wars, persecution, and which are eligible for international protection.
Okay. Who else wants to? Yes, sir. And I see over there. Let's start here in the front.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Denis Bonvillain from Suez, a resource management company. Can I please ask you to elaborate a bit more on your environmental priorities, especially with regard to water and circular economy? Thank you very much.
The word that you mentioned the most is citizens, which of course is very much welcome. And you mentioned that you want to rebuild the trust of citizens in the EU project. However, something that I have not heard is any mention to two international treaties that if we implement properly, will definitely bring the Europe focus on people, planet and prosperity that will undoubtedly rebuild this trust of citizens in the EU project. I'm talking about the Paris Agreement, of course, and in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The implementation of these two agreements require a review of many EU public policies. Do you have any specific mention about the two of these? Thank you.
Mads Romuto with UL, a safety science company. This week is also International Product Safety Week here in Brussels. And so one of the things that we've seen is a challenge with the consumer product safety regulation. And so thinking about the need for greater access to products online and the high levels of unsafe products across Europe, wonder if you have any thoughts about how to perhaps drive that regulation forward in your presidency.
Three questions dealing with Coreper 1 issues, and which I will also give the microphone to our Deputy Perm Rep for more technical answers. But my political reading of these three issues. First of all, I believe that the environment is always on the rise when it comes to the people's priorities. Most of the times, we all the time read in the news and in the political discourse about Coreper 2 issues, but Coreper 1 really affects the day-to-day life of our citizens, their concerns, their hopes, not only about environment but also as in consumers. Water and water conservation is also an issue for us as a member state now, not as an incoming presidency. We have limited natural resources. Perhaps we are the only member state that perhaps that we retrieve water from sea and distill that. and therefore we are very well aware of the challenges in this regard.
Thank you very much. To complement what Dr. Bosch has mentioned, when it comes to water there, since there is no legislation in the pipeline, our primary focus will be on reuse, and there we're teaming up with the Commission and its services and with other key players in the sector in order to deliver in terms of events happening back in the capital. On consumer product safety, we all know what the situation is. The last time it was discussed at council level, we had a very interesting exchange of views between the respective commissioners, and to our great surprise, the proposal has not been withdrawn in the recent work program. We have been very clear with our partners there. Basically, once the plane gets its wings attached, we will happily provide the runway to get it off the ground. On the Paris Agreement, basically, we'll be following intently, very closely what will be coming out of Marrakesh, and make sure that it will be fully in line with the very heavy workload in terms of legislation on the ETS, ESR, related proposals in the Council. Our intention there is to progress as much as possible on each of these proposals.
Thank you, Ambassador Kerr. We have time for one more round, but before that, let me say goodbye to Ambassador Bunic. She has to leave to accompany the Prime Minister. As I said earlier, it's a heavy day for the upcoming Maltese presidency, including a meeting with the college. So thank you for being with us. So who wants to see one over here, 2, 3, 4, 5? Oh God. Let's take the first one and see, but please be short because time's running out.
I'll be short. I'll be short.
Thank you.
Sam Kinman, Burson Marstella. How does the Trump presidency affect the Council's approach to TTIP?
That's an easy one. Over there, the lady maybe. Thank you.
Good morning, Alexandra Mayer-Hodal from the U.S. mission to the EU. I actually wanted to ask you about something you touched upon in your opening remarks about the upcoming elections, whether it be the Italian referendum, the elections in France, Germany, and the Netherlands. Can you expand on that? What risks and opportunities you see in these elections, and how worried are you about this complicating the work for you as a presidency? Thank you.
Anton Toma from Paragon, Maltese company. Fast forward 6 months. How, after the Maltese presidency, how do we want to be seen, and what would be, let's say, the end result of those 6 months, and how then we can be perceived within Europe?
My name is Sofia Rosmar, and I represent the Swedish Confederation of Professional Employees. The current Commission has 2 initiatives which we as trade unions support, and that is the social pillar and the revision of the Posting of Workers Directive. I would like to hear whether you have any comments on how active the Maltese presidency will be on these 2 issues. Thank you.
And the last one, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Stéphane Rottier, European Central Bank. What are your priorities for the functioning of the Economic and Monetary Union, the Euro area?
Okay, that's a long one. Trump, elections, social pillar, Economic Monetary Union. Please decide how you want to respond.
Yes, I will try to do my best and reply all the questions in the limited time I have. So, the U.S. elections and other elections which we have in the coming weeks. Of course, it's a democratic process. The people took an important decision. I was in Washington 3 weeks ago, and I could feel that the interest there is for future transatlantic relationship, and I am pretty sure that the existing relations we have and what we had with the United States are deeper than personalities and politics itself, and therefore I am confident that we will continue to have a good relationship with the United States. However, like in any other sort of relationship, you need to work hard every day to conserve or rebuild trust accordingly. And in this regards, I am we are totally in line with the thinking and letters sent by Presidents Juncker and Tusk in this regards. Being proactive as a union, come together as a union, and then outline what are our priorities and what we want for the next 4 years from these relations. When it comes to elections and referenda, well, the member states you refer to, and to which I referred to also in my speech, they will all be sitting around the table every day for working parties at Coreper level and at ministerial level. So the fact that there are possible either change in personalities, governments, but also possible change in policies according to the electoral debates, manifestos, so on and so forth. That also poses a challenge for a presidency to reach an agreement. We only have 6 months to reach agreements on the various dossiers we have on the table. So that already poses a challenge. But I mean, I am no one to say or to judge, I mean, what sort of democratic decisions each and every population of these member states take in their respective elections. The referendum in Italy is an important one. It's crucial to have a stable political system and a politically reliable partner in Italy, which we as Malta, and I think also the European Union, finds very much in Prime Minister Renzi. The Mediterranean region is in most of the cases, it's in the news for the wrong reasons. I mean, we are all the time referring to the Mediterranean region when we are discussing the challenges of migration, security threats, so on and so forth. So these will definitely always feature on not only on our agenda, but across the political debate. However, it's also important to reflect on the opportunities that this region is giving, not only to the member states down there, but also to the rest of the European continent. To reap the opportunities and the benefits they give us, it's crucial to have a stable political North Africa. And I think that we have to build on the successes of Tunisia. We continue to support Tunisia, but at the same time also concentrate on Libya. However, to achieve a political agreement in Libya, I mean, the only way that is achieved is by having Libyan peoples talking to themselves, and this is what we as Malta, but also as a presidency, supporting External Action Services and High Rep Federica Mogherini, which is doing a sterling job in order to be there ready to stand up and support our Libyan friends if they ask for our help. But the most important thing is that they continue to speak to each other and come to an agreement themselves. I think we still regret the vacuum which the international community left after eliminating the dictatorship and regime back in 2011, and now we have to stand ready to respond and support the Libyan people when they decide that a political agreement is reached. Because we can discuss opportunities about maritime, tourism, but also other issues like energy, connecting not only to the east but also south. But you need a stable government. You need to know who are the people and the democratic authorities which you can talk to. Something which unfortunately we do not have in Libya, for instance. With regards to the social pillar, I very much think that if we want to reunite or relaunch this European project, it should be a social union. The citizens believe that these are the measures. This is the umbrella which in reality affects their day-to-day living, and therefore we are expecting the Commission in that regards. We will definitely do our utmost to move forward that particular dossier. And when it comes to the posting of workers directives, of course we need to gauge with the other member states around the table. We cannot force anyone to agree to a text. But as a presidency, what I can assure you is that we will do our utmost to not only act but also be perceived as honest brokers on this dossier, which we also, as a member state, have our position in this regard. It's nothing secret about it. I don't know whether Neil wants to add something to this particular last question.
On the posting of workers, this was one perfect example how we ensured continuity within our trio, where the good work which our Dutch colleagues have started off, we made sure that we followed quite closely in terms of making sure that the picture is complete, and there obviously we're in very close cooperation with the Commission to gauge the situation. As Dr. Borch mentioned, we will not be aiming for the calculator at the end of the process and make sure that we just have the numbers and push forward for an agreement, leaving countries out in the code. Basically, we want to make sure that we're engaged within the whole process and that countries do feel the sense of ownership when it comes to the eventual outcome. On the social side, obviously, this is closely related to the work on the coordination of social security. There, the progress we will attain during our presidency will depend on the timing which the Commission will follow when it comes to the issuing of the proposal. But obviously, we're acting in close cooperation with the Commission and Commissioner Tyson particularly on this.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. I want to thank you, both of you, for being with us this morning, for sharing your time, for sharing your thoughts. In your speech in the beginning, you were so kind to also refer to minor me by quoting that from my personal analysis, muddling through is what we can expect. I hope that we will witness ambitious muddling through over the upcoming months. But listening to you, I see that your level of aspiration in terms of ambition is very high, but at the same time pragmatic. So it is a Europe of concrete results, one could say, but also realistic results. I wish you all the best in that task. We wish you a good presidency with not many surprises, because surprises often are not on the positive side. Thanks again for being with us. Hope you will have a successful day. Thank you to all of you for being with us, despite the heavy rain, coming to this breakfast briefing. Thanks again, and I wish you a good day.